We haven't built a computer in a while, so how about we take a look at this old Zenith Data Systems desktop. This particular machine came my way as part of the big Mega Load pickup. Quite a nice neat little form factor. Front of the case just has the floppy drive, spare 3.5-inch bay down there, but there's a hard drive hiding in beside that. There is a little power LED just in there. And then we also get the AT keyboard connector. Not much to see on the sides other than the power switch. Not just quite as clunky as what you might find on one of the old IBMs, but nevertheless, there it is. Then round on the back, that just confirms how basic this little system is. We only have the 2 serial ports, one parallel and the onboard VGA. Room for 3 expansion cards, although there's none fitted. I can foresee us sticking a sound card into one of these. Case lock, as was typical for a system of this era. And there's the PSU. Zenith Data Systems made in France, and there's our model information. But that doesn't give away any information about what's going on under the hood. So let's take a look. 2 screws on each side and 3 along the back. That gets us inside, where we can see the dusty innards of this old system. So we have 4 memory modules. Not a lot of chips on them, but at a guess, what do you reckon? 1 megabyte total, possibly 2. We'll soon see when we power this thing up. The motherboard has a chips and technology chipset on it. Well, I dare say they are the chipset, and that is the VGA controller. There did used to be a battery in here, but I have long since removed that. And if we take this screw out, and there's another one on the front, that will allow this daughter card to come off. The CPU daughter card, this system is running an 80286. There it is there. And as you would expect, we have space for the 287 math coprocessor. It would appear that this computer is clocked at 16 megahertz, and I'm basing that on the 32 megahertz crystal there. That's generally divided by 2 to give us the 16 megahertz CPU clock. That's again confirmed down here on the chipset, 16 megahertz. But interestingly, the CPU itself is only rated for 12. So it will need a bit of a clean. It is kind of dusty. But let's put this back in. We'll put this screw back in anyway. And then, how about trying to power this system on? Power is connected, and we're going to take VGA into the capture card. But for the full Zenith Data Systems experience, let's hook up the keyboard that also came with the system. Quite a big keyboard, isn't it? And somebody has stuck this word perfect shortcut list to the top of it. A bit odd the way the keys have yellowed. They haven't all yellowed, only some of them have. But this keyboard is quite nice. It is sporting a Cherry brand, including those delightful switches, although the ones in here are the black switch, so they don't exactly give that telltale mechanical click. They still feel quite nice to type on. So is this going to work, or are we going to see fireworks? I would rather it worked. I know you lot would rather see the pyrotechnics. Let's see what's going to happen. Well, we're getting power through the system. Power LED is on, and I can see a host of other LEDs on the motherboard. I'll show you them in a second, but we're not getting a video signal. And with no tones or anything coming from the PC speaker, well, I think the first thing we should try and do is reseat that daughter card again. There's almost like a build-up of something on that edge connector there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because it's way down inside it. But let's give it a blast with the contact cleaner. Quick scratch with the toothbrush. Just do the same on this side. Need to get more of this. I suppose it also wouldn't do any harm just to reseat the RAM. Now that I have them out, actually, you can see the capacity of these. So these chips are 424256, so 4-bit 256K. You're going to need the two of them to make 8-bit, so 256K on each, and just 1 megabyte total. If I had to hazard a guess, I would say the motherboard is capable of supporting maybe 8 megabytes of RAM in total. There are 8 SIM slots here, so we could look at expanding it. Need to get it to turn on first. Right, is that going to make the difference? Seemingly not. We're still not getting a signal. And finally, we have some signs of life. That is a really flaky connector at that point. You might just have been able to see some of the LED action going on in the background. We will get to that. But the system has posted errors found, bad configuration information found in CMOS. Well, you would expect that since there's no battery. Please press escape to continue. And there we are. We are dumped straight away into the BIOS. Default date there is set at 1990, which you can generally use to date a machine, although in this instance our ROMs there quite clearly have a date of 91 on them. But that said, I thought we had a total of 1 megabyte of memory, so let's see if we can enter that. Enter size of main base RAM, use space backspace to select values, arrows to move, escape when done. Well, it's going to be 640K of base. I can change that to 512 or 256. It just powered itself off. I've turned it off at the switch as well, but why did it do that? Do we have a failure in the power supply? I'm going to try and power it up again. Watch out for those fireworks. No, it came up again. That is strange. So, as I was saying, let's try and select the total amount of RAM. So if there was 640, 1024 less 640, we're looking for a number of 384 here. Just like that. Operating speed, let's leave that on fast. We'll leave everything else enabled. Boot to the floppy, then the hard disk. Yep. I'm going to have to pull the hard drive out to get the settings for it. I'm not sure what type of drive it is. I know it's a Connor but I'm not sure what model. Let's just see if we can get this machine to boot to a floppy disk. Just going to use this disk, MS-DOS version 3.3 from the Olivetti software library. This is just a double density disk, only 720K. I just like to use it because it boots very quickly. I would be surprised though if that floppy drive isn't a 1.44 meg high density drive. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So either I can't count the amount of memory chips that we have in here, or it is only 640K in total. Well, we're getting a disk error. Given the state of the inside of this machine, it may well be the case that that floppy drive needs cleaned. Let's just try this as well. Just quickly wrote a copy of 6.22 onto that. And it doesn't seem to like that either. I've just taken everything apart. We're going to give it a good clean. That should bring our floppy drive back to life. But got the hard drive out, and we can now see that it is a Connor CP3044. And if we look that up over on Stanson, you can see that it's a 43 megabyte drive. But more importantly, on this site, it also gives us all the details we need to enter into the BIOS. So I'm just going to give everything a bit of a quick going over. Just going to brush off the worst of it, and then I can go over it with a cloth just to remove what's left. Is it any wonder our floppy drive is having trouble reading things? Look at the state of that. Can't wait to see what it looks like inside. The drive is a Sony model number MPF17W2Z. It's a 1.44 megabyte drive. Riser card is absolutely kicked in it. On the motherboard though, I'm just going to use the toothbrush to brush this off, rather than using that bigger brush, because there are quite a few of little patch wires, and I don't want to risk snagging any of them with the big brush and ripping them off. And that's really all I'm going to do. Just give it a quick dusting. We could spend hours going around with cotton buds and IPA getting all that dust off, but there's not much point, to be honest. There's those LEDs I was talking about. So we have individual ones here for CPU, ROM, RAM, interrupt, disk and ready. You take a look at those in operation when we put the system back together. Thought it interesting that both the floppy drive and the hard drive have these rails on them, which slot into there on the case. The only screws are on that side. And because of this little lip here, the only way to get the drives out is forwards. Not just as dusty inside here, generally wouldn't be, because you know 3.5 inch drives are fully enclosed, but nevertheless we'll clean it all out and give the heads a bit of a going over with some IPA. What's that? Does this drive have a motorized eject system? I'm not so sure because I don't see any wires going to that. I don't know if that's a motor or not. Never seen something like that inside a PC floppy drive before. Right, everything's about as clean as it's going to get, or as clean as I need it to be anyway. Let's just put it all back in the case and see if we can't get this floppy drive to read a disk. See if we can't get the machine to boot to its hard drive. So just reassembling, and I thought this was quite interesting. There's two unused positions here, and to my eye anyway, that one looks about the right size for a 286 processor. That looks about the right size for the coprocessor. So was there maybe a variant of this motherboard that just had the main CPU installed on it? Didn't have the riser here for the daughter card. And one other thing that's a bit odd, this jumper block here, J503, the pins on it have been snapped off. The one beside it, everything's bent over a bit. Not really sure what's going on there. I mean, the system does seem to post okay without it. Maybe if we could find a motherboard manual, it might give some indication as to what that was for. Or if anyone had one of these machines in the past, I'd be really interested to know if yours has the daughter card on it, or if it has the processor on the motherboard. I mean, the only reason for this really would be to allow an upgrade path, maybe to a 386 system. You wouldn't be able to upgrade this to a 486 because it's only got the 16-bit data path. But perhaps there was an 80386 daughter card, although you would expect it to be a 386SX daughter card, which in itself is very, very similar to the 286 in terms of performance, so why would you even bother with such an upgrade? I'll see if I can find out any more information on that, but as I say, if anybody had one of these machines in the past, perhaps with a different daughter card on it, please let me know. And then the other oddity, the hard drive, it's held in place with plastic screws. Now, at a guess, that's maybe done to cut down in vibration from the drive into the case, try and dampen noise. But something I have never seen before in any of these vintage computers. Just have to be extra careful when using a plastic screw because it would be very easy to strip it. Okay, curiosity has got the better of me. Let's see if we can't figure out if those positions on the motherboard are indeed for a processor and its co-processor. So with the daughter card in place, we can't really get to the CPU position. It's up here somewhere. But we can see one side of what I think is for the co-processor, the 287. So if I bend this back, we can see some of the pins there for the 287 on the daughter card. Let's see if there's any continuity through to those points on the motherboard. And there is. Certainly on the first pin, and the second one, and the third one. Nothing on the fourth one there. The fifth one along. Yep. Sixth one, yep. So yes, I dare say that is exactly what that is for. And if that's for the coprocessor, I would say it's a fairly safe bet the other one is for a 286 itself. Not sure why there's no continuity there through pin 4, from that position up to here. Well, I'm calling it pin 4, the fourth pin along from that side. May well be that some of those jumpers on the board would have to be configured for an onboard CPU and coprocessor rather than the offboard on the daughter card. I said I would show you these LEDs on the motherboard, and while I would probably need the manual to understand exactly what they're doing, I think what happens is when you first power the machine on, they'll all be lit. Then as the computer starts up, as it checks its own hardware, they go out sequentially, leaving just the ready light on when everything is up and running. So if I just flick the power on, that's them all lit. CPU and ROM go out first, then RAM, then interrupt. This goes out when the drive seeks, and the machine is ready. So let's boot our machine, drop into that BIOS, try and get it all set up, including that hard drive. I want to see if it'll boot to that. This screen here, by the way, maybe we should just look at this quickly, because when the system does post without any operating system, this is what it will give you. The MFM 200 monitor version 3.7b. Confirms our memory size 640k, question mark for help. So this seems to be some sort of debugging tool. There are multiple options there. We can tell it to boot from the disk just by hitting B. Although we can also specify floppy or Winchester, the drive number and the partition. We can display a color bar, just like that. There's then a bunch of options to scrutinize the memory. And down the bottom we have test, just for extended diagnostics, and then setup, which drops you into the BIOS. We just take a look at test quickly. Well, we have more options now for disk read, and I dare say we can use that to test the floppy. Or maybe not, maybe that is just for testing the hard drive. We can do a keyboard test, and it just displays a full page of the character that you're typing, even gives you the character code. We can test the memory. Could do an extended memory test, but the computer tells us there's none in there. I am not convinced though. I still think that is 1 megabyte of RAM total. Although the 384K above the 640 of base, that might be getting taken up by the shadowing options for the BIOS on the video. We can do a power up test, which seems kind of pointless since the computer is running. And we can exit. Typing setup though, that drops us into the BIOS. So let's see if we can't set up that hard drive. Now, is there an option that I can define it myself? It's usually at the end of the thing. And no, it doesn't seem like it. Well, if we refer to that information from Stanson, you can see there that there's seemingly two variants of this hard drive. One with 1047 cylinders and the other with 980. So let me go through here to see if I can find anything close to them. Right, that one's not a million miles away. It is a 43 megabyte hard drive. Stanson says 980, but on the BIOS here 977. Heads and sectors are correct though, 5 and 17. Will we try that one? Drive type 16. Yep, seems as if it has booted, but what has it booted to? MS-DOS version 4. What have we got? I can see a Windows directory. And Windows version 3. So yeah, doesn't seem like this wee machine had much history outside of a professional environment. Just seems to have been used for WordPerfect. One of those two non-Windows applications, Quattro and Link utility. By the icon, I would guess it's some sort of spreadsheet application. When you launch it though, it's a DOS application with the name QEdit. Files to edit. I don't know. Yeah, line, column. That's exactly what it is. Some sort of spreadsheet thing. Link utility. No idea. Not a DOS application, and it's looking for parameters. Don't know. Let's just hit enter. Microsoft 8086 Object Linker version 3.05. Not really sure what that's used for. How do we get out of this? Quit. Our little Zenith Data Systems 286. I think we've done just about enough for today. We have the machine cleaned out and it's now booting to its floppy drive. And we discovered a little bit about the history of this computer. Obviously spent its life in a professional setting as we've seen. It's well and truly retired now though, and to set it up comfortably for use in the man cave here. How about next time we throw in a few upgrades? Bit more memory, perhaps a network card, and we absolutely have to stick a sound card in there as well. What's your thoughts on retro brightening? Please let me know, because as you know, I'm not really one for it. The case itself has yellowed quite evenly, and I am very tempted just to leave it. The only thing that's making me think we need to do something is this keyboard. and the fact that it has yellowed rather unevenly. That said though, it's not really the weather for it. In the middle of November outdoors at the minute, we don't get a lot of sunshine, so that may have to wait regardless. But for today and for this video, I think that's it. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed what you've seen, and if you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Why not hit subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content. Still plenty more yet to come here on CRG, and I'll see you next time.